Hey, welcome back to the Owner Operator Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Gray. In this episode, Malcolm Marshall is joining us. Malcolm owns a pool service business down near Austin, Texas. Malcolm was an early employee at one of the large energy drink companies, and after selling some stock, he went and started his own pool service business. They've since grown the business to multi-millions of dollars in annual revenue. And if you have an interest in starting a pool service business, you're going to want to listen to this episode. I learned a lot from Malcolm, and I think you will too. Before we jump in the episode, I wanted to mention that we just launched a school community for Owner Ops. What is Owner Ops? For those of you who don't know, Owner Ops is an online hub specifically for people who are starting a local service business. We've documented the process that we use to get our business up and off the ground, and it's designed specifically to help you guys who are starting a local service business go from 0 to 500K mark. So check it out, ownerops.com, OWNROPS.com. I hope you enjoy the episode. Real quick, wanted to share with you two agency partners who have helped me grow Bear Claw Land Services. Striker Digital manages all of our SEO services, and they've got us to #1 on Google for specific search terms within our local service business. Cedar Digital Consulting manages all of our social media and YouTube, and they make it very simple for owner operators like myself. All I have to do is go take photos and videos in the field, upload those on my phone to a shared iCloud album very quickly, and they handle everything else from there. They edit and they publish. I don't have to worry about it. I can focus on growing my business. So if you're looking for SEO services, check out Striker Digital. That's Striker, STRYKER -digital.com. And for social media, check out Cedar Digital Consulting. That's CEDAR digitalconsulting.com. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Austin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you've got a pool business north of Austin, huh?
Yeah, that's right. We do construction. We do equipment repairs, service, kind of do it all.
How did you start the business?
We started in just service in 2014. We bought a route of 43 pools down in Austin, and we kind of just took it from there. We neither my business partner or I had any pool experience. We thought that it was going to be a kind of cut and dry, easy business to jump into. And so that was kind of the start, was just buy a route and get going.
How did you find the route to buy?
There used to be a lot of routes listed online. So, the standard sites, LoopNet, and, all the places that you Google and say pull routes for sale, and 10 different sites pop up, or 10 different brokers. There's not as many anymore because of some PE roll-ups. They're kind of hard to find, particularly in this area, but they were easy to find back then.
What is your background? Like, what were you doing for work before you bought the route?
So I went to Texas A&M. I got a bachelor's degree in accounting, a master's in finance, and I never sat to take my CPA exam, but that was kind of the plan. And so that's what I did for the first 9 years of my career. Was I worked in accounting and finance for C4 Energy, if you're familiar with this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we started there before C4 was a thing. At the time, it was just a sports nutrition company called Cellucor. And it was about 10 of us in an office. And then the company started blowing up, and we grew from 8 million in sales to about 300 million in sales at Cellucor. And so that's what I did before, was I ran their accounting and finance groups.
Wow, that's crazy. And for those of you who are just listening on the podcast and not watching video, he's talking about C4, like the energy drinks.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So 8 million. So you were with them throughout that whole growth phase, 8 to 300 million.
I was, yeah. And since then, I think they've doubled again. So I left in either 2017 or 2018, and I believe they've doubled again, really with the release of C4 and more of the ready to drink, can that you see in the convenience stores now.
Wow. And they're a Texas company?
They are. When I was there, we were based out of Bryan, Texas, which is Bryan College Station is where Texas A&M is, and they moved to Austin a few years back.
Nice. Yeah, you're in a hot area down there. A lot of startups, a lot of good business opportunities. And so you identify like why the pool business?
Well, we thought that it was going to be a simple business, and that we had a outstanding marketing plan. We had some money in our pocket because Cellucor had sold a third of the business, and so we participated in some equity sales that were, they put some money in our pocket, and we thought, hey, here's a business we can jump into, dump a lot of money into marketing, and we're going to be able to grow really quickly. How hard could it be to clean a pool? And then we found out that it was a lot harder than we thought, which kind of seems to be what anybody who decides to just jump into this industry says. But yeah, it really came from us when we made that equity transaction. My business partner and I were just working all the time, and we were kind of tossing around, man, what if we worked this hard for ourselves? How far would we be able to go? And so we started kind of looking at different industries and different ideas as they would pop up. And the pool business was the one that we thought we were going to be able to conquer, particularly service. We thought we were going to be able to roll up some service companies, thought we would be able to put together a marketing plan that would help us grow quickly. And, in a sense, we did grow quickly, but it turned out to be a lot harder on the operations side than we thought. And so when we started, it was just a service business. And then in 2018, we started doing construction as well.
So like you've mentioned it multiple times here, like why is it harder than you thought?
So there's a little more to cleaning a pool than cleaning your car or cleaning your house. And the main thing is just there's a lot of environmental factors that you don't anticipate. So whether it's you get a big rain, there's something in the air, the lawn guy blows all the clippings into the pool that week, and so now there's phosphates in the water, and there's organic material that you didn't plan for. There's just a lot of factors that are there that aren't there whenever you're, like I said, cleaning your house or cleaning your car. There's also a lot of different technology and equipment out there, and so it's really hard to train people to be able to troubleshoot all of that, especially when they're coming in an entry level role. There's probably 10 other factors that we could walk through. Those are the two that stick out. It's also, people need service type work, but you're also out there to do maintenance. So it's kind of hard to draw a line between, okay, this is where my maintenance work stops and where my service work starts. Just a number of factors about the industry that are kind of quirky that you have to work through. And we still haven't figured out, we're still working on trying to tackle.
Yeah. So when you say the difference between service and maintenance, meaning like I'm sure you have recurring contracts in place for the service side of things, correct?
So I would call that maintenance, just recurring contract for weekly cleaning.
Okay.
And making sure that the water stays clear. There's no debris in the water.
Okay. And then you have repairs, right?
Right.
And so you're saying that's hard to draw the line between like what is like, is it because like what's covered under the regular maintenance?
Yeah. So with equipment repairs, which sometimes I use interchangeably with service. So if I say both of them, I'm probably talking about the same thing. You may have the pump may go out, the filter may be having issues, or it may just be a simple leak in a valve or a union where there just needs to be an O-ring replacement. Could just be the top of the pump's leaking and it needs an O-ring replacement. Some of those things, like those simple O-ring replacements, we try to make sure that we take care of with maintenance. That way we're adding that value and picking up those customers on that monthly recurring revenue. But for the service piece of it, or the equipment repair piece of it, some of those repairs get over the standard maintenance technician's head, right? And so how is it that we make sure that we gather all the information that we need so that we can easily go out and fix it? A lot of service companies would charge you a service call, right? Maybe $95 to go out there and diagnose the problem. Well, the customer feels like, hey, you're already out here anyway. You should be gathering all of that information. And so there's much more of a quoting process on the service versus more of a, let me charge you a fee and go out there and diagnose it. So some of those lines kind of blur that make operations a little bit more complicated.
Got it. All right, let's go back to whenever you buy this. You guys decide to buy, would you say 43 pools? Is that right?
That's right. It's 43 pools in Austin.
What did that cost you to buy?
At the time, it was $90,000. A standard route goes for 12 times monthly recurring revenue.
12 times monthly recurring revenue.
Right. So if your average monthly recurring revenue is $200 on an account, that account's going to sell for $2,400.
Okay. And that's standard even at the level of 43 all the way up to whenever you have thousands?
I would think at thousands, you would be looking more at like an enterprise value of even a multiple, or you could potentially get more for it because you're operating a larger business. But your kind of standard routes, anything that I've seen under 300 pools, something like that, generally sells for 12 months monthly recurring revenue.
Got it. All right, so let's go back to the marketing plan. You said you had this amazing marketing plan in mind.
That wasn't all that amazing, really. It was just achieving a lot of touches, right? Making sure that we were hitting specific neighborhoods that we were already in, trying to densify our routes. Lots of flyers, lots of door knocking, just the standard get in front of people, make sure we're already in the neighborhood with wrap trucks, make sure that we're getting references from those neighborhoods. And I think it was more so, hey, we have the money to invest in this, so let's push it, than it was actually an amazing marketing plan.
So that's tactically how you're marketing it. Did you end up buying any more service routes?
We did along the way. Once we got in and we started having some employee issues and kind of figuring out that, hey, this was harder to manage than we thought it was going to be, we slowed down a little bit on adding routes, but we did along the way. Whenever there were good opportunities, usually it was anywhere from maybe 50 to 180 accounts at a time. 180 maybe on the high side, but generally it was just as the opportunities popped up, it became much less of us searching and more of people heard we would do it and they would kind of search for us.
And how many routes are you currently servicing right now?
So right now we go to 670 weekly maintenance accounts. So we go to them every week. We sold our Austin business in 2020. So we actually kind of downsized our Austin, our service routes. So we just serviced up in the Temple Belton area, which is about an hour north of Austin. And so that a lot of those pools that we bought during that time, we offloaded and decided we were just going to kind of focus geographically on what we were conquering easier.
And what drove that decision to sell?
I think it was more that we could focus on this particular area where we're having a lot of success in construction, and also service, and also just how hard it was to service. Austin can be a little bit of a beast when you start talking about going down south and you get into the hill country and the roads get narrow, and to get to one pool that may be having a problem, it may take us an hour and a half to get there from our home office. And so when you had this secondary market, at that time it had become a secondary market for us, even though that's where we had started. that's requiring that level of management. It just got to where it was like, let's focus our time up here and hit the avenues where we're really growing, which at the time was construction. Make sure we can focus the team there, and then also, allow us to take a bit of a cash out on those routes and reappropriate it in the right spot in this market where we were more consolidated.
Okay. How long?
We have some efficiencies.
Yeah, yeah. How long ago was it that you bought the first service route?
It was in 2015. So the very first day we serviced was March 1st, 2015, almost
2015.
Exactly 9 years ago.
Okay, so you've been in this game for almost a decade.
Almost, yeah. It's hard to believe.
Wow. Okay, and you're at 670 currently in the Belton market, is that right?
That's right.
All right. And what does an average service contract look like, or excuse me, maintenance contract?
From a operational standpoint or a dollar amount?
Dollar amount. Like what does that consist of?
$285 a month, and that includes chemicals. So you get two different models. Some people will just charge labor and then charge chemicals. We kind of do an all-in-one contract. So we charge $285 a month. It includes weekly maintenance visits and your chemicals.
And that's one visit per week at $285 a month.
That's right.
Okay. And so you obviously have that leg of the business, and then you have the construction side. And I've checked out your website, and it's incredible, by the way.
Thank you. We just had it redone. It wasn't that incredible 2 months ago, but
who built it?
We used a SEO firm called ClickFunnels Media.
Oh, cool.
No, yeah, Boost Funnels. I might need to look that up. They've been excellent. They turn it around in like 3 weeks, and they're very good about pushing for calls and keeping you updated on the SEO side. If you have an SEO firm that hides from giving you updates or isn't pushing to make sure you're on the phone with them, they're probably not working on it behind the scenes. These guys have done extra for us and gone beyond the contract and made sure that they're regularly updating us, and they've been great. They're out of San Antonio, and I just happened to find them online and decided after some research they were who I wanted to give a shot. But I believe it's Boost Funnels Media.
Okay, cool. How much did a website like this cost you?
It wasn't very much with the SEO contract. I think it was like $3,500.
$3,500. And then what's your monthly spend on SEO?
We're spending $2,500 a month on SEO. They kind of gave me a package tier. Do you want this one, or this one? I picked the middle tier, like I'm sure most people do. Yeah, but it's $2,500 a month.
And do you get primarily new construction leads or maintenance contracts from that, or a blend of both?
We get a blend of both pretty evenly.
So what is a let's talk new construction. At what point did you decide that you need to jump into the new construction side of this business?
Yeah, in 2017 we had what was a slower growth year on the service side. And so I had actually talked to another guy who was in the industry that kind of told me what his margins were on a swimming pool he had just built. And I was like, hey, that's a little better than I thought. So with the slow year in that conversation, I went back to my business partner and I was like, hey, I think this is something maybe we should look into a little more. So in 2018, after some research and digging in a little bit more, we decided to go ahead and make a hire that would be able to help us manage that side of the business. So we started building in 2018.
And what were the margins on that he told you?
So he was running a 35% gross margin. He didn't have much overhead, so it looked pretty nice. We're pretty overhead heavy. We've, at this point, between the offices and the staff and the people and the service level we want to provide, we're pretty overhead heavy. From what I've seen in the industry, just a few conversations I've had, most builders are producing EBITDA margins of maybe 7 to 10%. We've had years where we've done better than that. Last year we were below that, but we added a lot of overhead from an acquisition and some things like that. So we're kind of trying to grow back into that. But I think that our gross margins will end up around 35%. Our EBITDA margins, as we grow back into that overhead, will end up in the low teens.
Got it. How big is your team right now?
We have just over 50 people.
How many offices?
Just one.
Oh, just one. Okay. 50 people, one office, 670 maintenance accounts. What is a typical new build project? Like, what's an average ticket item on a new build?
About 100,000.
Okay. And then the business model now, I'm taking a wild guess, is that you build the pool and you get the maintenance contract?
We try. Yeah. And we convert probably half of the new construction builds to maintenance contracts.
Only half. Like that's surprising to me.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've really dove in, but it seems like in the industry, only about 20 to 25% of pool owners hire a pool maintenance company. So we're converting twice that many. Like I said, it's been a while since I've done that research, like probably like 2015, 2016. So maybe that number's a little higher now, but most pool owners are DIYers. They're maintaining their pool themselves.
Okay. What are your overall goals with the business? Like, you've been in it almost a decade at this point.
So right now, our overall goal is to build an amazing business. We try to optimize for if we ever were to exit, but I think that those two things can go together. For us, I would like to see, last year we did 16 million in revenue. This year we're targeting 18 million. So a little bit of a slower growth year from what we've seen, but I'd like to see us get to 50 million. And I'd like to see our team grow, and I'd like to build a great business where people feel appreciated, where they can get a kickstart to their career, where we can provide them with world-class training, where we have the best customer experience in the industry. Those are the things we're really focused on. And when we talk about the future of the business, that's primarily what we're talking about. We're not talking about how do we optimize enterprise value, or, should we roll this benefit out or that benefit out, because how's it going to affect the company if we were to sell? Like, those conversations just aren't happening. It's just, how do we build a great business?
That's awesome. So one thing I'm really curious on, you're at 16 million currently. You start with one service route. Like, what's the first thing you do after you acquire that service route? Like you've had to take decades of different steps to grow to this point. But like, what did the team consist of at that point? So it's you, your business partner. Let's start with this. What roles did you bring to the table, and what roles did your business partner bring to the table? And like, what were some of the first things you guys implemented to help jumpstart that process?
So I was still at Cellucor, and I was primarily working on the business in the evenings a lot, probably 30 to 40 hours a week on marketing type tasks, right? Website, SEO, Facebook advertising, some of the mail outs and the other execution that we were trying to take care of on the marketing side. We also had a guy that was going door to door in those markets that we were targeting. My business partner was in the operations and he was learning the business, but the first thing he did was hire somebody, right? Hired somebody, tried to train them on uh, cleaning a swimming pool well so that he could focus on working on the business. Um, but that first employee quit after 3 weeks and tried to steal all of our service customers, which he was somewhat, he got like four. So props to him. And then, one after a month, he stopped showing up and they called us back. But the step one was really a lot of bumps. We're trying to execute this marketing plan. I'm trying to execute some marketing behind the scenes and really just drive some things that I thought the business needed for a foundation. My business partner was operating, which was supposed to be from a managerial perspective, but from the very beginning, we had some employee bumps, and we started, and he ended up as more of an operator in the field. And we really, just as a side note, we've found ourselves consistently having to jump in the business and participate in the operations up until really the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. We've really kind of stabilized the operations so that we're not occasionally getting pulled into the field and things like that. But step one was to try to grow and to try to put that management structure in place. It just didn't go as we thought it was going to go.
So like tell us what happens next. Like, what happens after that?
So we just keep driving, right? Keep driving, keep trying to hire, find some people to put into place. They're turning over occasionally, which continues to pull us into the field. But we do start to grow the route because of the aggressive marketing plan. It was more expensive than we ever wanted it to be. But because of the aggressive marketing plan, because of the door-to-door primarily, we do start to grow the route. We grow from 43 accounts to, I think we ended that year at like 80 accounts. And then the next year, we're able to double that again. Michael was the only one working in the business full-time, my business partner. And so he's still constantly getting pulled into the operations, which is, okay at that point. But what we didn't want him doing was going out and running a route of, 50 pools in a week when he should have been managing, making sure the phones were answered, stuff like that. But what really helped us grow was that in about 2 years in, we decided, where we were primarily operating in Austin, only operating in Austin, we decided to move the operation primarily to Belton and Temple, which is an hour north of Austin, and there was just far less competition. And we also had some connections around here because this is where I'm from. And so we were quickly able to kind of build a route here. And then once we started building that route and doing a good job at it, it was just, it got very easy to grow in this market. And that's when we really saw things take off, was when we kind of made that geographical shift and really started growing two markets simultaneously. We're still growing Austin, growing Temple Belton, and instead of adding 40 accounts the next year, maybe we added 140, and then the next year we added 140. Then we were able to acquire and add some routes in after that, and so we were going from 40 to 80 to 180 to 300 to 400. It just got to where we were growing regularly at 100 plus accounts.
What's the best way you've found the service technicians to keep up with the growth?
So we've always hired off Indeed, which Austin, give me just a second. I've got to plug my computer in. I forgot to do that.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. Yeah, so we've always hired off Indeed. post a job listing, screen as many that come in, and if we need one, we hire three. That's the basic formula. We've taken referrals, right? If an employee had a friend who wanted to come on, we found ourselves actually in trouble because of that, where we've taken on three guys at once. So we've got, the first employee, he talks to three of his friends, they come on, and then after a year, they all decide that they want to go do something else. And so we've found that that's actually can be effective, but only effective in doses. But the main way is we always go to Indeed. We pay well. We have benefits. You can, as a service tech, you're getting your health insurance paid for, participate in a 401k plan. We have a short-term savings account. I mean, we have more benefits than most companies, and the reason is that we're trying to attract and retain people. But there's been certain periods where we've experienced high turnover, particularly during COVID. Just like everybody else, pool service was deemed essential, and so there were a lot of people staying home, and our people were having to come to work, and the result of that was that we experienced more turnover than we would have liked, and it took a couple years to really stabilize the business. What we really found is that we really saw our labor force start to stabilize at the beginning of 2023. So all through COVID, things were turning over. Before that, from maybe 18, 19, 20, we had a pretty stable workforce. First 3 years, we didn't. But really, in the last year, we really took a big culture focus, tried to make sure that not only did we have the right pay and the right benefits, but that we were really engaging the team, talking about direction, where the company was going, making sure we were only hiring for our core values, continuously communicating vision. And through that, we've seen a major stabilization of the workforce. So part of it was kind of timing, part of it was great managers, part of it was this culture focus, but always hired off of Indeed. How successful it has or hasn't been has really been around some timing in the last few years, and then adding in a culture focus.
You said you pay well for those service techs. What is paying well in this industry? Like, what do you start somebody at?
They make in the low 40s per year. So they a lot of them, they make about $20 an hour if you take that average 40-hour week. We pay a salary. Most of them find themselves not working 40 hours a week. They're more like 35. There's some weeks where it gets a little worse. They work a little extra, primarily around spring or fall, right? When there's either pollen falling or leaves falling. But for the most part, we pay a salary, and it amounts to $20 an hour, unless you consider the fact that they're not usually putting in 40 hours a week.
Got it. And how many pools can one service technician service?
They do about 10 a day. Some companies will put their guys on more. You can definitely do more. When Michael and I used to service, we would do 12 to 14 a day. But what we find with our team members is that about 10 is the sweet spot.
And what other costs do you have associated with? So let's see this: 10 a day, 50 a week.
Yes.
50 a week. So, and they're hitting each one weekly. So that one person is responsible for roughly 50 pulls.
That's right.
And they do the same 50 pulls every single week.
Ideally.
Yeah. Give or take some.
Right.
Yeah. What other costs do you have associated with that? Like what sort of, like what trucks do you want to, do you buy your trucks? Do you lease your trucks?
We buy our trucks. So we buy our trucks. They're all Chevy Colorados. We wrap them. It's 30 grand a truck, something like that. Used to be 24 2 years ago. Now they're, $35,000 a truck. We wrap them all, $3,000 wrap. The guys need equipment, not much. Brush pull net. It usually costs about $1,500 to kind of outfit a truck. That includes some parts that we want them to have on the truck, the initial round of chemicals, stuff like that. Everybody has a cell phone. Fuel is it's one of our bigger expenses. Software, we have a custom piece of software that we have to maintain. So it's a piece of software that we built that really was part of that overall initial marketing strategy. That the software has been successful. The marketing strategy wasn't super successful, but we built some custom software to help us solve some of the problems we were seeing in the pool industry, primarily around communication. So we have to keep that maintained, but really, if we kind of look at that as a expense associated with headcount, right? Like kind of divvy that cost up as a cost driver behind headcount. So there's a software expense, fuel the truck, equipment, cell phone. Not too much more.
What are your gross margins on the service?
So deducting labor and chemical expenses, we're probably at about 40%.
And then how long can you run that vehicle? Like how long do you get out of that truck that you buy?
We have some of them that are paid off. Kind of the first maybe 5, 6 that we bought are paid off over 5-year notes. So we're getting 5 years out of them at a minimum. I don't know how many years we'll get out of them, because we're not old enough to know that yet, but we're getting at least 5 years.
But the strategy of buying the trucks early on, you were placing the bet that you can get enough out of those to where it makes sense to buy that.
Yeah, that was part of it. The other thing is, when you're sticking a $3,000 wrap on it and stuff, like there's just it starts to make more sense to run it a little bit longer than your standard 3-year lease. So that was part of the decision for that. Every time I've looked at the numbers and tried to make sense out of leasing versus buying, I just never got there. It's been a while since I've looked at them, but we always thought we could get more than 3 years out of them. Continue to use that wrap as an asset to market the business, and so we've just always decided to buy.
Got it. Oh, can you hear me? I think we lost some connection there.
Yeah, I got you.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're good now.
Okay.
That software, did you guys build custom software specifically for your use, or did you build software and do you sell that as a SaaS product to other pool companies?
We built it specifically for us. We had it built the first year that we started, and we used a firm that marketed themselves out of Austin and Houston, and really they sold here and they kicked everything to India. And so it really was a little bit of a challenge to get it built. A lot of 11 p.m. phone calls where we're going over a piece of software that really, although we had wireframed it and had a good understanding of what we thought we were getting, didn't necessarily materialize. So it took a lot longer than we expected, but we battled through it. We actually came out with a really good piece of software. Kind of looking at some of the others in the industry, ours works really well. And guys who come over from different companies always comment that our software works better than their kind of more industry-wide software, which always blows my mind because of how big of a battle it was. But what we ran into at this point is that the initial build was not done well, and so now we're at this point where we really need to rebuild it, which is going to cost $150,000 to $200,000. And so there's been some challenges with it, but it was a piece of software made just for us.
Why custom build it versus use something out of the box?
There weren't a lot of great options at the time, and there definitely wasn't anything that was trying to solve some of the problems that we were trying to solve around primarily communication with the customer. And, some of those features that we were trying to get really didn't materialize. But ours does kind of notify the customer multiple times before we show up, make sure they get automatic reports. We never did build out like a customer facing portal where they could get in and get information, but it's actually would be a less expensive ad at this point compared to the rebuild that we need to do. And then, I do think that overall it opens up some avenues and some opportunities to the business. Let's say we ever wanted to license or franchise or anything like that, like having a custom piece of software would put us at an advantage in doing those things.
How far are you away from making that decision whether or not you would license or franchise?
We're pretty far at this point. When we started, everything was an option. At this point, we're a little more focused. Particularly, just construction's been successful, and we think that there's a long runway there. The market just north of Austin, it's Georgetown, Leander, is growing really, really fast, and it's a market that we really have just kind of dipped our toe in. And so we think that, right now the focus is growing in the market that we're in and really moving one market south 45 minutes from us and trying to capitalize on the growth there.
Are you able to service that out of your existing office, or do you have to think about building a complete new location, like centralized place for people to meet, people to office out of? How do you think about that?
Yeah, we could service that market out of our existing office. The challenge is that during the pool design process, you have multiple meetings with the client. And so asking them to drive, 45 minutes to an hour, 15 minutes to our office is a bit of a disadvantage compared to local builders down there. And so that would be the only office that we might have to add, is some sort of meeting room / showroom for that pool design sales process.
Man, I have so many questions associated with this. Like for your construction process, what does that team look like? Like you mentioned, like customers meeting face to face with somebody. Like who handles that role? Like what does that look like?
So kind of the kickoff to a pool sell is with a design process. So somebody picks up the phone, they call, they say they want a pool, and they get they're in contact with a designer right away. And so that designer is going out and meeting them on site, looking at their backyard, talking about what they want in their backyard and in their pool. They're also shooting grade, making sure we understand the elevations. And then they're coming back, and based on that conversation, they're creating a design, 2D and 3D plans that we can show to the customer to make sure that we're nailing their vision. So that design meeting, so we call the first one the on-site meeting, the second one the design meeting. The design meeting happens in our office. We don't send those plans out electronically. We've put in a lot of work at that point, so we try to hold on to those where they don't get quickly pushed out to the lowest bidder who doesn't have to put in the same front end work. From that design meeting, typically there's some updates in the design, and then we have it quoted. And we send that quote out to them electronically, and that's kind of the sales process.
And are all of your construction, like actual field crew? Are they all in-house employees, or do you have subcontractors in place for the actual building?
So the only thing that we have in-house is we have superintendents or project managers. Uh, there are 4 project managers on our team. We built about 120 pools last year. So each one, we put on about 30 pools a year. Some companies will put project managers on double that. But anything that's that's actually being done in the field is subcontracted. We have some with 120 pools. We're one of the bigger builders in the area, and so we have some really good relationships with our subcontractors. But a pool is excavation, steel, plumbing, gunite, tiling, coping, deck, electric, plaster. I mean, it's 8 subs. Most of the subs that we work with, we're their biggest client, and so they feel almost like a part of the team.
So you have you don't have one specific sub who's like, hey man, I focus, like I have everything to do a pool soup to nuts. You have to manage a pool build not completely different than managing a construction build for a home. Like you have 8 different subcontractors for the different processes associated with the pool itself.
Yeah. So our excavation, steel, and plumbing is all one company, actually, and a lot of builders have it that way. So that's a big advantage because those are your first 3 subcontractors up until the gunite shell or the concrete shell, and so up until having that shell, you're really working with just 2 subcontractors. But after that, it's pretty broken up. It's pretty segmented.
That's interesting. Excavation, steel, and plumbing are managed by one subcontractor.
Yeah.
Like that's like a specialized thing to do.
Yes. So in our situation, it's a father son, and so the son handles the excavation and the steel, and the father does the plumbing. Um, it's it, it does need to be done well, right? Um, and so there are others who offer it out there who try to do it all and don't do it well. Um, but then there's a handful of guys who can do it all, and they do it well every time. And a lot of these guys are really, the guy who's out there, the excavator he doesn't have the same guys who are excavating also doing the steel, right? He's running different crews, and he's finding um, the skilled labor and basically brokering it, right? He's just charging me an extra $3 or $4 a linear foot to do it and send them out there.
But that's not the one you currently use, right?
It's the one I currently use. Yeah.
Oh, that is the one.
Yeah, he's more or less brokering it, but from an ease of operations and just speed, like to have him charge me a few extra dollars a foot is absolutely worth it, and have him pretty much manage the subcontractor.
Yeah, for sure. No, I guess the only reason I bring that up is like in the excavation industry, like it seems like, and maybe it's just because we don't have a lot of pools here in Colorado, or not as many as you guys do down there. That seems just like a very specialized thing to focus in. Like if you've got an excavator, likelihood of you being a good plumber, unless you're a septic installer, is probably slim, right? So I just found that interesting that the one sub can manage those 3 phases of the pool. So then take us through the next phase. After that, you had the gunite.
The gunite shell.
Yep.
That's a 1-day process. They go in there and they shoot it from a truck into the shell at a high PSI, a high pressure, so it basically sticks, and they can cut it and form it. After that, usually you're letting it cure for a little bit of time. Some people will tell you 28 days. If you look at a cure chart, you'll see that a week's pretty sufficient. And after that, we're sending in a mason, and that mason's doing the tile on the water line and the coping, which is the stone band between the deck. It basically sits on the top of the concrete shell. From there, kind of simultaneous to this, we'll have a couple other things going on. So we set our equipment during the plumbing phase. So we have a concrete pad poured and we set our pool equipment. So we're getting our electrician in anytime during that phase. And so the electric's done really anytime before plaster, after the gunite show, but before plaster. Then we almost exclusively pour concrete decks. Depending where you're at in the country, a lot of people do pavers. We don't do a lot of pavers. We mainly pour concrete decks. And so somebody comes in, they do the flat work, and then kind of the final phase. The way we like to do it is right after that flat work, we bring somebody in that's on our team that does the cleanup, basically grades the yard, spreads a load of topsoil, puts the fence back up, so that when we finish the pool with plaster and fill it up, we're almost done, right? So then the final step is to plaster the pool or do the interior finish. Plaster, quartz, pebble. The general term would be plaster, but some people would just call it pebbling because so many people put a pebble product in the pool, but it's basically a cementitious product that they're spraying on the shell and finishing to give it a nice, smoother finish.
Interesting. Do you guys ever do the like stamped concrete around the pool?
Sometimes, not much. I think it's more our market. Our market it's not as affluent as, let's say, Austin or DFW or something like that. And so generally, the budgets are just a little lower and they're not doing those extras. You know, I think it's worth noting though, there's certain parts of the country, or if I was building in DFW, I might use one subcontractor after gunite. So I might only have 3 subcontractors, one for excavation, steel, plumbing, one for gunite, and then you'll get companies that can do the flat work, the tile, the coping, and the plaster. So you were kind of asking about that a while ago. Like some markets, you may manage just 3 subcontractors. Ours is a little different. It's a little more segmented. There is one provider that kind of does it all. They're steep because they're doing all of that for you. And so it's most builders in this area, their model is more to segment it out.
Gotcha. I'm just always interested in like the actual construction phases. That's what I grew up doing. My dad owns a stamped concrete business down in Texas.
Okay.
And, they do a lot of pool decks up in like West Texas, around like homes and whatnot. Anyways, I always find the construction phase super interesting. Man, it's been fun. Like, you've shared a lot here. We kind of got down a rabbit hole on the construction side.
Yeah.
From the business perspective, what would you share with other people? Like, what are some lessons you've learned through building this business over the last almost decade?
You know, I think probably the biggest lesson that stands out to me right now is that there were certain points in the business where we decided that maybe growth was more important than sticking with some of the fundamentals that we grew the business on, particularly during COVID, right? It just got really frustrating to find people or to have people not show up for no reason, or just some of the bitterness. And so we found ourselves getting away from some of those fundamental values that we had built the business on up until that point. We started bringing in just anybody that would work to either try to keep up or to try to maintain growth that we were constantly chasing. And like I said about last year, we said, hey, we've gotten away from the fundamentals and the values that we built this business on. Let's get back to that. And when we got back to it, we saw a major stabilization in the business. We saw major team buy-in. And so one of the biggest lessons that I learned was just that sometimes you get this idea that establishing that culture is more of a buzzword in business, and you lose sight of the value of it. And so if I could do it all over again, I would have made sure that we were always focused on values, always focused on vision, always communicating well with the team. That's brought so much clarity, so much drive, and just unity within our team at this point that I think we could have. I think we could be substantially further along had we not gotten away from that.
What specifically are those values and that vision that you got away from, and then you're like
Yeah.
coming back to?
So we obviously redefined those in the last year and a half. But if we go back to some very early communications between me and my business partner, they were the same then as they are now. They're just phrased a little bit better. But the Poology vision is to be the industry leader in employee happiness and customer satisfaction. Ordered that way on purpose. It's focused on our people first, and then through focusing on our people, we believe that they'll drive the customer satisfaction piece. And so that's what we want to be. That's the big goal. I think we kind of talked about that earlier, where we ultimately wanted to take the business was just to grow a great business. And so it starts with that vision. Our values are trustworthy, team over self, be relentless, and a desire to grow. And I can expand on those if you want, but basically, we're looking for those innate qualities within people, or the lack thereof, when we're building our team.
And what you're saying is, in your hiring process, you're turning people away if they don't fit. If they don't fit all of those values, or do they have to meet like X amount?
Yeah, so we operate on EOS, and so we use some of the EOS tools that they give us, and so we talk on plus, minus, or minus. If we find that anyone's a minus, they're not a fit. More than 2 plus minuses in certain positions in a managerial position, more than 1 plus minus would not be a fit. And obviously, we're looking for all pluses. We use it in hiring, firing, rewarding, promotions, annual reviews. It's a focus on all of our people conversations.
When did you implement EOS?
We implemented EOS Q1 of 2023.
Oh, wow. Okay. So fairly
About a
recent.
Year. Yeah.
And is it something you wish you would have done earlier?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think that I would ever, if I was to start a new business tomorrow, we would operate on EOS from the beginning. And 8 years in, it was a little more. I don't want to say it was difficult, right? But it was a different need at that time. There was more selling it to the team. There was more getting the leadership team on board. I believe that if you started and consistently operated on EOS from the beginning, it would take away a lot of the headaches that we faced in our first 8 years.
Got it. And along those lines, like what's a couple mistakes you've made that you would go back and either change or just recommend to someone else? Like, hey, I tried this, just don't do it this way.
Specific to the industry or business in general?
Just business in general.
Okay. So a lot of what made our business operate better with EOS was things that made me operate better. So I did a poor job of communicating with the team. I did a poor job of communicating the vision and direction with the team. Like I said, we got away from really looking for people with the values that were important to us, and so we let some of the principles of the business kind of dilute with making the wrong hires. And so those are some of the biggest mistakes that we had going on in the business. And it was creating a bit of disarray, right? Like I wasn't telling people, hey, here's the plan, here's where we're going, here's the goal for the year, here's the goal for 3 years. I actually had them. I mean, I'm a finance guy, so I create annual financial plans that are, this is how we expect to grow was just, this is how we expect to grow. This is how we expect cash to grow. This is what we need to invest in. I was doing a poor job of communicating that with my team. And if I could go back and change anything, I would have been doing that from day one. And I really probably got away from it in like year 3, probably like 2017, 2018 in the business. And so there was just this 4-year period where people were guessing. So I would make sure I communicated with my team better. I would make sure they were always aligned on where we were going. I would never allow people to enter the business that don't align with our principles and values. I think those would be my primary things that I would have done differently.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing here. I really appreciate you being on, Malcolm.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
I don't think so.
All right. Where can people find you online and find more about Poolology?
Yeah, if you want to know more about Poolology, you can find us at pool-ology.com. So there's a dash in the middle. We do a lot on social. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn. We're posting regularly, 1 to 2 times a day. Most of it video, most of it more entertainment based. Some of it will add some value if you want to know about pools. And if you want to connect with me, I think the best place to do that is on Twitter. It's about the only social network I really engage with. And I am at Malcolm Pools.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on, Malcolm.
Yeah, Austin, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Cool. Well, there you have it, listeners. Malcolm Marshall with Poolology. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you are enjoying these episodes and you're listening on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the episode. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, would you mind to just give us a like, follow, and just like running a service-based business, 5-star reviews are super important for podcasts as well. So if you don't mind to take 30 seconds right now, leave us a quick 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. And finally, this episode is brought to you by Owner Ops. Owner Ops is, simply put, just a resource for service-based business owners. You can learn more at ownerops.com. That's OWNROPS.com. We'll see you guys in the next one.